Welcome back to Berlin, Germany, and week 3 of the LEC Spring Split. A day packed with action is ahead of us, and it all builds up to the rematch we've all been waiting for, as rivals G2 Esports and Fnatic will face off in Game 5. That's today. Cancel your plans, you're watching League of Legends. In Ready Check, the match of the week is the main headline, but we, myself, and of course my lovely analysts and experts, Froskurinn and Yamatocannon, will be breaking this one down and also trying to make sense of Aphelios and give our judgment on the LEC drafting. It's an absolute honor. I am Machine, your host. Day 2 of my second attempt of not being fired. Let's see how it goes. Fingers crossed.
You're doing great, man.
Dude, you know, watching you from the internet, from afar, I was like, oh, it's kind of that handsome guy, sexy voice, I get it, cool. You're making me look silly here. You're going for a 3-piece suit. I've showed up in a bloody biker jacket from Zara.
We're a team.
We were just like,
looking great.
It's the banking district over here. We're like planning the 401ks.
What
We've
am I
got like
doing?
the portfolio. You're showing up, you're at the front of the band.
Yeah, or asking for spare change. I mean, one of the two. Either way, it is fair to say that yesterday, oh, that was a poem, had a lot of hype moments, but also some players that did leave these guys scratching their heads. Now, this isn't normal, guys. Is this an everyday in League of Legends?
That's
an
an
trick one.
Oh, it started with that
an
one. It started with that. But skill shots were being missed yesterday, Frost.
I mean, everything was going wide, yeah. That time, though, that was the minion. That was the hero minion that blocked the Q. The issue is that normally you don't really see this. And it wasn't just one team or one player. It was like the entire day, people didn't have their Wheaties. Maybe the screens were slightly tilted, but I've never seen so many missed skill shots in a single day of the LEC.
I think it's rough because it's mostly junglers and they're pretty useless as is. And if you miss that one single cocoon that is so important, then it stings because it's like you have to make it last.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, what do we attribute this to? Just a bad day in the office, or is it? Could we say, you know, this is week 3 now. This is still ring rust, getting back into the season. What do you think?
I mean, what do you do as a coach when you see that, Yamato?
I just kind of pretend it didn't happen because this is not something that you can teach from. You don't bring it up in the review and it's like, dude, you missed a skill shot. You're just gonna look ridiculous. You just move on and you know, you accept
Everyone
that your
knows.
support hates playing Nautilus. You know, you just brush it up as that.
Yeah, and you also don't want to be the guy just nodding like, yeah, don't miss skill shots. It's not like that. There's not much analysis there. I could do that. That's my color commentary. If they just hit all their shots, they'll win, I think. Anyway, there was also some games that did, of course, get that League of Legends blood pumping. It was G2 versus Rogue where we got our attention drawn first. This was quite the game for us.
Yeah, because we had 2 extremes. You effectively had the Benny Hill music where everyone was missing their skill shots. The circus came to town. It was just a total clown fiesta. And then you had games, exactly, like Rogue, Excel, G2, and Fnatic, where people were actually just out executing on each other. But so many decisions, these matches were so close that it came down to who actually hit the skill shot, who made the flash, who made a cross-map Senna ult like that.
I think also, you know, the thing that stands out to me the most is now this is the 3rd time Wunder has picked Soraka. At this point in time, we can kind of imagine that if you face G2, they're going to look to pick that Soraka. And I don't think the answer from Rogue was anything in particular. They had the Aatrox, the Lee Sin. I want to see teams go heavier. I want to see Elise, I want to see Kled, I want to see dives over and over, really nullify that thing, make sure that she uses ult on top side instead of in the fights down below.
And it's also just the idea that with Rogue and Excel, you know, these are kind of our team's 5th, 4th place that they're duking it out there. You don't expect them to stand as tall as they did versus our top of the table clashes like the Fnatics and the G2. So if you're a Rogue and Excel fan, you feel really good after yesterday.
You certainly do. I mean, Fnatic fans are also going to be feeling pretty fantastic. There's no doubt about that. Fnatic, of course, versus Excel. It did deliver. Mickey, this outplay did turn some heads and certainly farm some upvotes.
I actually lost my voice during this call. I think I yell, "Are you kidding me?" And then the very next call I have is, "Oh, Mickey, you so fine." And my voice actually cracks because I lost it when he did that. And people are like, "Oh, all he did was flash. It was the GP, it was the Senna that was really doing the work for him." Now, he also dodged with his distortion, and he was also timed perfectly with the Gangplank ultimate and the Senna ult. So that was amazing for Mickey.
It was a tricky position because it looked like an int because he was in the middle of nowhere, and then he kind of just pulled up like a rabbit from
out of absolutely nowhere. There's like napkins out of one arm, flowers out of the other sleeve. The man was pulling all kinds of tricks. Anyway, this does set us up perfectly for a huge match of the week later tonight, with G2 and Fnatic both fighting to the top, and at the top of the tables, they currently stand. Just talking of standings, they are on your screen right here, right now. What's jumping off the page here?
I think the big thing with Fnatic and G2, what differentiates them from everyone else is I feel like the way they play the game is more of a sprint, less of a marathon. It's hard for me to put my eyes on anything else because that's the big matchup of today.
Ultimately, though, when you do kind of take your eyes down the standings, people expect the G2, the Fnatic, the Origin, but then on the tip of everyone's tongue is Rogue and Excel. But you can see how far down the standings because it is such a tight race. I think that's what's really surprising. It's the fact that Misfits are on a 3-game winning streak, that Mad Lions are continuing to surge, and it's the fact that even though we're nowhere clear to playoffs, it feels like it is such an intense race because there's so many competitive teams. You maybe have 1 or 2 tickets that are actually viable spots for playoffs. You cannot mess up at this point.
Yeah, margin for error significantly decreased, and we're in week 3. It's crazy. And something that's been really confusing me is that, you know, humans, they've discovered electricity. They've solved the Rubik's Cube. They've traveled to the moon. But will we ever truly master Aphelios? I don't even know who this mystical champion is. I've just been seeing clips of people just getting blown up from the other side of the map. There's like X's on the floor, everyone's upset, the health bar's going down. People are making Reddit threads saying, let's turn him into just a giant gun so we understand what's happening. You know, let's talk about Aphelios. Let's take a moment to review the champion that's been confusing a lot of people.
I mean, I think it is definitely a clarity issue. That's what people have done. But we like to keep things really simple. We like to go with the color. Have you ever played Twister?
I did once or twice.
Okay, so it's like right hand green, like left hand blue. And that's what I like to think about with Aphelios. It's like green is for range, white is for dueling, red is for lifesteal, blue is for AoE, and purple is for CC. And then you want to figure out how to get all of those color combos, put them together, make new colors, be super creative in team fights. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Is it working?
Yeah, so there's five different options. So he's like 5 different AD carries at once.
Exactly, but he's only got 1 button.
Of course.
2 buttons sometimes.
So
that's what's so silly about him.
How is he 5 ADs and he's only got 1 button?
It's so silly because playing it is not that complicated. Because as you said, you have 1 button, the combinations, they become very clear for you.
Sure.
This is one of those cases where you have to learn the champion by playing the champion. Because playing against it is not so clear. Sometimes, you know, there's a gravity cannon, flamethrower, they look similar, they're basically both purple, which drives me insane. It's just so hard to know what's coming at you. I think you just got to play the champion to understand it.
And specifically with that clarity, I think the big issue is on the ultimate, because as the ult's flying at you, as Yamato says, you really don't know what you're about to be hit at. Or is everyone about to get locked down because the CC is there? Are you about to take a massive AoE damage? And that's where a lot of the question marks come in.
Right, and just to put a pin in it then, final question is for the guys watching at home, you know, they're in their solo queue games, they're confused by the Aphelios. Your advice is just play it, right? That's how you understand it? Just
play it, because otherwise it's just like Dungeons and Dragons, you roll a dice and maybe, you know, the ult just looks like this wave with a bit of color on it and it's hard to judge based off of that. So just play it, yes.
Play it, there we go. Perfect advice from our perfect analysts. Now, 2 of our best Aphelios players are actually Caps and Reckless, and later tonight the former teammates will face off yet again, this time in the bot lane.
Going up against Reckless will be very weird. I think Reckless is probably the person I've played with for the longest, and he's also the guy who taught me the most. So to face off against like my old mentor is kind of like a student beating his teacher kind of thing, and I'll see if I can do it.
It's a scary matchup for sure, but I've never really felt the rivalry myself. I don't really mind that he's bot lane or mid lane or wherever. I think at first I really cared for it, because then I was in this kind of weird situation where I despised him for having us start over. But now that we've reached the point of actually being able to win everything, I feel like it's whatever. He's just another ex-teammate that I've had 20 or 30 of anyways, so it's okay.
Oh.
Ooh.
That's savage.
I mean, I don't want to like jump in anywhere. I'm just going to let that rest and echo around the halls here in Berlin. But I mean, there is a gorgeous amount of drama attached to these 2 stepping into the rift against each other.
I mean, you couldn't script it better. I know we say that all the time, but we are so lucky that we have 2 of our top teams, 2 of our biggest organizations, and they're both playing well. This is effectively, if you looked across the LCS, and if TSM and CLG were actually still relevant, that's how good this matchup is, that G2 and Fnatic are so strong.
I think the crazy thing is, you know, there were always these question marks. Caps moving to G2, was it a good move? He answered big time. It was the right move. Now, Caps moving to AD carry, big question mark. And at the same time, the sideline was always Fnatic the last 2 years and this year too. But Reckless has continued to improve, and that's what's so crazy. I remember playing with him in a team 9 years ago when he was 14 or something, and he had this drive that he just hasn't let go of it.
Right.
And he just keeps improving, and the fact that the player of this caliber, of this history, hasn't peaked yet is absolutely crazy.
You think there's more on the Reckless mountain, the climb to the top? You think he's not at the peak yet?
He's not done yet. Far from it.
My God. But does it also, I mean, does that also, when we praise someone, you know, and we talk about the timeline of Reckless, how does that compare to that of Caps? You know, is it comparable? Is it parallel?
It's unfortunate because Caps is so good that you wish that you could just talk about him on his own, which you absolutely can, but kind of in the context of Reckless, it's the idea that it's the two prodigies. Reckless was a prodigy when he was first coming out, and Caps has been a prodigy since basically day one when he solo killed Perks, and he really made a statement. Baby Faker, and it's now baby Caps for Faker. And so the fact that Caps now, as Draco said, gets to look him in the eye like, I'm another ex-teammate. Well, guess what? You think you can win it all? You have to go through me now, toe-to-toe, 2v2.
Yeah, the way Ender and Dracos described it yesterday to me was like, he, you know, previously he stabbed him in the back, now he wants to stab him in the face. I think that's a pretty fantastic way to frame what is just going to be this very, very kind of, you know, beautiful human side to the video gaming clash that's about to be going down. But do you have an inkling of who's coming in hotter in terms of form?
I have to say that I think Reckless and Hylissang have the experience, because you've seen Caps and Mickey deliver, but then you have those slip-ups, those oopsies that happen. They get caught in lane. If Reckless and Hylissang get one kill, all of a sudden they're going to take your arm and just eat you alive. They're like a shark that tastes blood.
I think it's the best bot lane in Europe right now versus the best player that Europe has ever created.
That's a beautiful way to frame it. So Reckless, does that carry over to your prediction? And we're doing this later, but I mean, I should bite my tongue. We'll talk about who we're going to actually think is going to win this later. We've got so much time. We're not in a rush here, but I am intrigued as to whether they correlate to your prediction as to who's coming in hotter and who you think's going to be taking this one. Very exciting head-to-head between the two of them. My final question, though, is in terms of who the supports behind the new ADs. Do you feel like there's a clear kind of power swing in one lane or the other?
It's crazy because the super role, I feel like it is very risk-prone. Usually the ones that are the best are going to be the ones that get caught on occasion. And I think the same story can be told about both Hylissang and Mickey. Sometimes they have those games where they're looking for the flanks, looking for the vision, they get caught off guard, and it just kind of hurts their kind of image. But all in all, they are the best supports that we have to offer here in Europe.
The talent is so stacked here that it will come down to matchup, and it will come down to execution on that matchup, the mind games that you have in draft. We just talked a lot about Aphelios. These guys are probably our two best Aphelios players that we have in the league, and how they emphasize that champion strengths in very different ways. Caps is so good at purple Aphelios. He is hitting long-range, lockdown ultimates to set up G2's team fighting, and it's so beautiful to watch. Reckless is always aware of his red Aphelios, white Aphelios power spike when he has those two guns together. Fnatic will always be searching for fights. And yeah, you can say that every team is looking to do that, but these two do it better than anyone else. Watch if someone gets it, how they can flex on this champion, but I expect it will probably be banned, or at least given the respect it deserves for how talented these two ADCs are at piloting that champion.
So high prio on the Aphelios, and later tonight we will see these players clash in that bot lane as G2 and Fnatic will take to the stage for our Alienware match of the week.
Looking to be extinguished.
Rivalries are no easy thing. Competition beyond competition. Every battle is simply a piece of a much larger story. Ambition, sacrifice, betrayal, victory above all. You can sit back and bear witness, or you can stand with those you believe in. So I ask you, Europe, will you rise for your champions? Will you stand?
When you have a history with someone, and a very long one, you're just bound to have emotions, right? I don't want to lose to them, right? It's not even about beating them, it's about not losing to them.
G2 and Fnatic, two of the best teams on the planet, go head-to-head for a spot in the final. Let's get to the action.
This game is descending into madness. Who's going to pick it up? It's secured by G2! There's fights all across the map right now, but it's G2 falling time and time again.
Last year, I think that's where the rivalry started for real.
Oh, that's already a kill to Flipko. Perks manages to kill Reckless. G2 Esports have bounced back from the clutches of Imperial.
They kind of had our number the entire year.
Fnatic versus G2, the final everyone was waiting for. These two titans of European League of Legends clashing on Summoner's Rift. Pick comes the charge in from the side as G2 are looking for the fight. And the Sank's gonna go down. Off towards the side as well. Mickey has fallen and Fnatic are coming out on top. G2 can do nothing about it. And now it's a 4v5. Wonder takes out Boxer. The second kill goes down as Whipper falls. And G2 by 3. The barrel doesn't land, but the torque comes out. And now it's an all-right brawl in the bottom lane. And it's Fnatic who are coming out on top.
Medic, we are going to game 5.
Whenever we go up against each other, it's always a pretty heated battle.
Everyone knows what it's like to be losing and bounce your way back.
First flashes forward, first blood to him. And Reckless
People keep fighting until the very end.
Whipper jumping in, and a second as well. Look at the damage, it's Fnatic. They fight the fight. G2 oversteps.
It's just one play away from victory.
Whipper takes down Yankos, and look at that. Nemesis is falling at the start of the fight. It's all on Reckless. And G2 are your champions.
I feel like after last year, we truly have that grudge to double them.
I don't want to just win, I want to like smash them, right? Just want them smacked, you know?
Whoever wins becomes the king of Europe, no matter what.
The stage is set as two of the best teams in the world will face off in Game 5, and it's a rematch of the Summer Finals and, of course, a battle for the ages between Reckless and Caps. But we do want to hear from you guys. Let us know who you think is going to be taking this one. Just spam G2 or FNC for all your G2 and Fnatic boys in the chat as I throw the same question at my esteemed analysts. It's time. I told you it'd be time to put your money where your mouth is. It's G2 Fnatic.
It's very difficult. It's going to be close, but I have to go G2. Okay. I think it will come down to the discipline of both the bot lane and the top lane, because both of them are prone on Bwipo's side to sometimes be a bit too cocktail, and the same with Mickey and Caps, a bit too cocktail. I think if Wunder gets a lead, that's dangerous. If Reckless and Hylissang get a lead, that's dangerous.
Sure.
These teams, if they get a lead, they're going to run away with it.
Yeah, it's the idea of the oopsies, that sometimes Mickey just has an oopsie, sometimes Bwipo has an oopsies. Who's going to have more on the day? Again, any smart money is probably going to lean towards G2 for a reason. That said, I keep hearing this idea that it's going to be like a 20-minute stomp from G2, that they're going to smash Fnatic. And it's like, history has shown us very recently that every single time that these teams face, it is never that close. Like, they're explosive games. They can snowball very quickly, but it's the smallest decisions. Because if you give a mistake to either Fnatic or G2, they just slam the game on you.
Right, so from what I'm understanding is when these two meet, it is just a question of whoever's coming in with the least mistakes. I mean, they are so closely matched that it is just a question of on the day, oopsies.
I truly feel that because it's best of one, you can never say, like, no matter what happens to here, I still don't feel confident being like, that team is infinitely better. It has to be in the best of 5. It has to come down to multiple runs at execution, because that's just the nature of those teams.
It's also a sense of build-up all the way up into this matchup. What have these players hidden from us in terms of strategy? Is there something hidden there? Because the last time, I remember last year, we had this Pyke Karma business that just threw G2 off guard completely. So that's the big question mark for me.
It's also the fact that the Soraka, everyone keeps leaving it open. You know that Wonder's going to grab it. He's joked that he's also got the Sona top down there, that maybe he has something even spicier. Fnatic are a perfect team to say, go ahead, take it. I've got some weird cocktail in the back pocket that I'm ready to just dump.
Absolutely, and I mean, these curveballs, if ever you were going to keep a little pocket ace, now would be where you pull it out, right? Especially G2, if they pick this win up against Fnatic, that unbeaten spree, there could be some legs to that extending throughout this split. For years, though, he was known as a drafting mastermind. He wears red ties, he's terrifying his opponents with spicy picks and magical shirts, but now he's ready to cast his sentence on the coaches of the LEC. This is Yamato's draft judgment. I'm ready. Strap in. You're going to treat us and break it all down for us. Of course, the first draft that we've selected is from Origin in their game against Vitality. Counselor, let's see what you've got.
All right. So this one, the thing is, it is strange because I don't have any issue with this draft. So it's a weird way to start. But it comes down to OG. What do I want OG to show us? All in all, it's always the same thing. OG have a composition where they outscale. I think they need to use these opportunities where they play against the enemies, the lower tier enemies, to expand on what they can do. I need them to play faster. I need them to snowball better, because it always comes down to the same thing. Origin, we give them the benefit of the doubt because they outscale in this composition. Camille against Aatrox wins the split. Senna is going to infinitely scale. Lee Sin and Syndra, very strong 2v2. Very, very simple. Vitality threw some punches, but eventually OG just outscaled. So I need to see more. I need to see speed. I need to see pace, especially if they're going to contest a team like Fnatic or G2. Next draft, please. Give it to me.
So is that like is that the past? Is it a good thumbs up?
It is an okay, but I want to see more from OJ. I want them to expand.
Like a B+.
This one, very simple. Rogue, not a lot of issues, but my issue here is what I mentioned before, that there is no big throwback or punch into the Soraka. You know G2's going to pick it. Soraka's interaction with LeBlanc and Lee Sin, you saw how Larsen was scared. Whenever that silence went down, LeBlanc couldn't go back, and Soraka's teamfight prowess was just too big to handle. So the question is, we've seen some Soraka bans, not specifically towards G2, because it's the third time in a row Wunder picks it. What will Fnatic bring as an answer? Will the other teams finally pick it up and use it? Because Riot has blessed us with another patch of Soraka OPness because she didn't get nerfed in 10.3. So we have a lot of time for teams to pick it up. It's time to follow what G2 is doing.
Right.
Next draft, please. The last one, Fnatic. You know, this one I hope, for the love of Fnatic, that they actually were hiding some cards here because there were some issues. I'm trying to find my mark.
There was some.
It's over here.
Oh,
I apologize. So my biggest issue with this is Fnatic, Syndra, they first picked it, fantastic. Very powerful because you can flex it, right? You can flex it. But then they instantly reveal the Misfortune Trash. Two very strong picks, I don't mind. But the issue is that you reveal the flex and you leave jungle into second phase. In 10.2, there is Lee Sin, there is Gragas, there is, which is the third one?
Jarvan?
Elise, Jarvan, yes.
Okay.
And then that's it. And when bans start to come through, you are left with an Olaf. He has nice teeth, he has a nice smile right there, or whatever you want to call it, but he's not that strong. And Selfmade, I think, it didn't have so much agency in this game. Strong early, but you know, this is the biggest question mark for me with the Syndra. Is Fnatic hiding something? Because maybe today they'll pick Syndra and maybe flex it into bottom. But I want to add as a last notch into the thing, Thresh. I love it. I think Thresh is very strong, good into the super matchup, good into Braum, because that's what you want to pick into Misfortune. In general, I think it was a good teaser, but I want to see more from Fnatic today.
Do you think it's a double bluff then, that they reveal that they don't flex the Syndra and then surprise, they flex the Syndra?
I hope so. You know, it's like Reckless has been playing some spicy normal games. I've seen him practicing Teemo, some Syndra, and maybe this is the time to show it up.
I know it's all speculation, but you are saying this with conviction that if ever there was a time for them to be setting something up, a curveball, a brand new, a pocket ace, you're suggesting this best of one would be where you see it?
For sure. Like we saw the interview, saw the hype. It is all building up for this moment. There is so much more than just a point. This is a statement.
Right.
This is, there's a grudge here, there's emotions here. So I think just like history has shown us, this is going to be exciting right from the get-go in draft.
Yeah, and I should correct myself as well. I actually credited Reckless for saying yesterday that it was his voice that said the words that we just don't want to lose to them. It's not about beating them, we don't want to lose. My correction is it was Perks that actually said that in that audio bite. My ears aren't trained for individual player voices yet, but I just had a go. That's quite brave of me. I don't know why I did that. Either way, we will see if the teams take your advice as we gear up for an action-packed day in the LEC Spring Split. G2 and Fnatic are closing things out in Game 5, but before that, we'll see if Misfits' win streak continues against Origin. Be sure to tune in for PGL at the end of the day, where I'm joined by both Caps and Reckless for more of that epic bot lane matchup. It's going to be a blast, but hopefully so is our first game, because it is a battle at the very other end of the standing spectrum as SK and Schalke 04 look for a much-needed win. The two German teams both made playoffs last year, but it's been far from a warm welcome back to the LEC. Guys, this is a very different conversation. It's very hot and cold, Katy Perry style. We are going from one end to the other. SK Schalke, help me understand and add some context to this.
Well, I've got good news. These aren't technically the two worst teams, because Vitality's also not playing in this match, so you have that. But that said, this will decide who then gets to play Vitality for who truly is sitting at the bottom of the standings here. And it is, it kind of feels like crisis mode for both SK and Schalke. When you talk about being the top of the bottom, expectations would have been on these two squads and these orgs, because they have the most veterans out of all of like the new teams, Mad Lions, Misfits, Vitalities, filled with fresh faces and rookies. And it's also the fact that they both made playoffs last time around. So to go from the benchmark of playoffs to hard resetting into scraping by is a real feels bad moment.
I think the biggest issue for me with Schalke is, as you said, it's filled with this veteranship. And this veteranship is known to not have the best cohesion in terms of longevity. It's hard to imagine a Schalke that grows. It's hard to imagine a Schalke that gets better. But then you have the other hand with SK. They still have some rookies. Sure, they played some games last year. Vitality the same way. There is some room for improvement. On Schalke's side, it was either they start off guns blazing and they win a couple of games because they have this basic structure of playing through bottom and then maybe getting something, but that didn't happen. I just feel like Schalke is solo queue on stage.
Solo queue on stage. It's quite a nasty combination of words, but yet reality does really start to manifest when we talk about the lack of proactivity. This took a while, Frosk, for you to find the word to describe what you were seeing. Proactivity was where you landed.
Yeah, that and teamwork. So what you're going to see on your stage was basically the most Fiesta game that we've had in the LEC, and we just ripped a page right out of North America. We sat in the mid lane. We forced the ARAM over and over and over again. And the thing about Schalke is I say that they're you must be this good to ride the LEC team, because they're kind of like the benchmark. Their players are talented enough that if you just get hard smashed by them, like they just brute force beat you in lane, then you probably don't have the pound for pound talent on your roster to go anywhere. But you can always outmaneuver them because there's no teamwork. So if you can match up against Schalke, if you don't just get blown out in lane, then you're probably going to beat them, because as Yamato said, this is solo queue on stage. There is no cohesion, there is no teamwork, there's no tangibles of like that friendship, that missing ingredient. I don't know what it is, but they're missing it.
So theorycraft with me here, Yamato. Who of the 5 that stands in that team now, who is the unifying voice? Where does the person that says we need to do something, that the eyebrows raising is not a good sign?
For me, the new rookie jungler that just came in, that's the person I know the least about. So I'm hoping that's him, because the others ain't it.
Right.
I think they have a very difficult situation. Even in their first initial game, they got a couple of solo kills, but it amounted to nothing, because just as Frost said, there was no teamwork.
No teamwork. Solo queue on the stage. Well, today Schalke do go up against SK, and for more of that, actually, Laure is standing by with Crownshot.
Thank you, guys. Laure here, and Crownshot is joining me right now ahead of this game. Thank you very much for joining me today.
No problem.
I have a question, because you won the first game and then you lost against G2, Misfits, Fnatic, Mad Lion. So I want to ask about the strength of schedule. Do you think it's because of the schedule you had, or is SK struggling right now?
I think the schedule was like, there were 2 very good teams in G2 Fnatic, but I think the other 2 were very beatable. So I think the strength of schedule is fine, but we are also kind of struggling right now, yeah, for sure.
But I mean, on one side, when you have to face the top teams right at the beginning, I feel like you can learn more from it. So did you learn anything from these defeats?
Yeah, of course. The games, I think we had gold leads in both of the games, and some of the fights were close, so we for sure learned a lot, yeah.
What are you working on right now to get better?
I think the main thing is just being on the same page when we go for plays, or like just working on communication, and I think that will be important today as well. And
facing Schalke today, I feel like it's a team that's also struggling, even maybe a bit more than you guys, because they had to swap 1 player. So what is the key to victory here today for you guys?
I think just being on the same page and always like going for the same play together and trusting each other.
And what are their weaknesses?
I think they're just not going for the same plays together. They seem a bit split. Like, yeah, they kind of die separately, and yeah, it seems like they're not on the same page, I would say.
Not enough synergy then. Yep. Okay, thank you very much for these insights. Problem. Good luck for today.
Thank you.
Back to you guys.
That was Crownshot there, just giving us a little extra insight, and of course does kind of back up what we're saying. We just talked a little bit about, the not being on the same page. It's a different word for this lack of proactivity that you've managed to identify. So clearly the issue is not a mystery to the SK guys.
Yeah, and it's kind of like 2 teams with the same problem. Now, the thing is when you look at SK's drafting, their bread and butter is usually the Misfortune, the Jarvan, the Rumbles, the big Wombo combos. That's what they always want to try to grab for. The Ornn is the champion that they always grab hold of or really sacrifice everything for. And so, theoretically, it's like a Band-Aid for being bad at communication, because as long as you just hit R together, you can be successful. But even then, they're not finding the right windows. Like, they have super easy to execute comps, but they can't seem to get to that level.
I think the big thing for me with SK is Crownshot with the interview. I think he's the shining light. It's almost, the issue with the AD carry position is that you can't really start fights. You need to be the one set up. And his Aphelios is very good. His Senna looked fine. And in general, I think Crownshot is a very strong player. But I think the biggest issue with SK is that they just don't try to pull the trigger. I describe them as a team that just cinema. They're just looking at the enemy, they're standing there, the Drake spawns, and then they're just looking 5-man, and they're like, okay, that's gone. Right. Then 25 minutes into the game, that's when they blow their first Ornn horn, and they try to make a fight, but it just doesn't happen. So I just want them to pull the trigger more with these compositions.
They watch themselves lose.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
I love it. That's the perfect way to leave it, because the pressure is high for both SK and Schalke, and it's time for us to strap in and see who comes out on top.